The CEO noticed him first by accident. A janitor, grey uniform, worn shoes, sitting alone in the vast executive cafeteria of the Lorne Tower long after midnight. He was eating a plain sandwich from a paper bag, a half-empty bottle of tap water beside him, counting $6. 25 in coins, one by one. The city lights outside threw fractured reflections across the marble floor, glittering around him like shards of another life. The man's posture was upright, almost dignified, as though this place once belonged to him. The CEO hesitated in the doorway, struck by a strange thought. He's been here before. Elias Ward had never been late a single day in 12 years. Every night just before 11, he arrived at the revolving doors of Lorne Tower, the glass and steel landmark that pierced the Chicago skyline. He'd press his ID card against the scanner, hear the dull click of permission, and step inside a world that no longer saw him. Once years ago, Elias had been the kind of man people waited for in conference rooms, an engineer, respected, meticulous, responsible for safety systems that kept entire projects from falling apart. But all of that had vanished in a single scandal, the kind that made headlines for a week and disappeared, leaving one name ruined and another quietly promoted. Elias's name was the one ruined. Now he cleaned floors that had once echoed with his own shoes. He emptied trash bins that overflowed with printouts he used to sign. No one remembered him. He preferred it that way. Home was a one-room apartment in South Chicago, facing the rumble of an elevated train. He lived simply, rigidly. Bread, coffee, long walks. His father had taught him a creed when he was a boy, a phrase Elias carried like prayer beads in his pocket. A man is measured by what he cleans up, not what he owns. It was something his father used to say when Elias complained about their small house or second-hand clothes. It meant that dignity came not from status, but from what a person made right, even if no one was watching. That belief guided him still, even now, as he polished the chrome fixtures others touched carelessly. He never told anyone his story. Not the younger janitors who joked through shifts, not the supervisors who barked orders, not even the security guards who greeted him with lazy nods. He saved his energy for silence and for precision. Every night, before beginning, he paused by the lobby windows and watched the city, the world of noise and ambition, move without him. And then he began his rounds, a quiet figure restoring order to the spaces ambition left behind. That was Elias Ward, invisible but unbroken. It began with a notice pinned to the janitor's board, thin white paper, company letterhead, clipped by a rusted magnet. Executive Board Summit, building access restricted, extended cleaning shifts available. Elias read it twice, tracing the line about optional overtime. 3 extra nights meant 3 extra pay slips. It wasn't much, barely enough to nudge his paycheck beyond survival, but it might close the gap on his overdue electric bill. The apartment had gone dark twice that month. He'd read his newspaper by the glow of streetlights leaking through the blinds, so he signed his name neatly at the bottom. Next to Ward, Elias, someone had scribbled a quiet insult, "Old man hero." He ignored it. The next week would be grueling, late nights, endless prep for the board summit, executives demanding spotless everything. But the thought of one small victory kept him steady. In his pocket, he carried the same $6.25 he'd been saving since payday. His safety net, his independence in coins. All he had to do was make it through 7 days without mistake. No notice, no complaint. Just work and go home with the lights still on. The board summit preparations began like a military operation. Floors waxed twice, mirrors polished until they looked like glass water. The executive suites, usually quiet after dark, buzzed with catering staff, planners and assistants barking into phones. Elias was assigned to the 43rd floor, the restricted level, home to the company's core leadership. He'd cleaned it 100 times before without issue, but that night the atmosphere had changed. He was kneeling by a row of glass doors, collecting discarded coffee cups, when he heard the sharp voice behind him. "Excuse me, what are you doing here?" A young woman in a navy skirt suit stood there, tablet clutched like a badge. Behind her, two other executives looked on, smirking. Elias straightened. "Cleaning, ma'am. Maintenance rotation. This floor's closed to staff tonight," she said, suspicious. "Who authorized you?" "Supervisor Heller. Same as always." But she was already pulling out her phone. Within seconds, security arrived. Two guards in press shirts, moving with the arrogance of borrowed power. "He says he's supposed to be here," she said. "Check his credentials." They did. They scanned his badge, checked the screen, then looked confused. "Sir, this ID expired 3 days ago." Elias blinked. That couldn't be right. HR had renewed all badges last quarter. One of the executives snorted. "Classic. Probably borrowed from someone." Laughter. "Small, sharp, the kind that stings more than shouting." Elias reached for the badge, voice low. "It's mine. Must be an error in the system." But the moment had already shifted. To them, he was not a man explaining a glitch. He was a janitor defending a lie. They escorted him off the floor while others watched. "Someone filmed," someone else whispered. Down in the service hallway, his supervisor met him with a look that mixed pity and irritation. "Just keep your head down, Ward. HR will fix it tomorrow." That night in the break room, he found his lunch missing. Only the empty brown bag remained, torn and crumpled, the words "Ward" scribbled in fading ink. He sat in silence, staring at it, before whispering his father's creed under his breath. "A man is measured by what he cleans up, not what he owns." And then quietly he went back to work. From the 45th floor, Michael Lorne could see everything, the lake, the sprawl of the city, and through a pane of glass, the faint reflection of his own success. He was the youngest CEO in the company's history, the kind of man magazines wrote profiles about, composed, visionary, a symbol of the modern leader. But that night, his reflection was blurred by the faint echo of laughter from below. He'd caught the tail end of the incident in the hallway, enough to see the older janitor, shoulders squared, being led away by security, while a few employees grinned behind their coffee cups. Michael didn't intervene. He should have, but something about the man's stillness made him pause. Not fear, not shame, just calm acceptance. It bothered him. Later, in his office, the janitor's name surfaced again. Elias Ward. It tugged at something faint in Michael's memory. He searched the internal archives out of idle curiosity, and what he found stopped him cold. 12 years ago, an Elias Ward had been chief engineer on the company's West Loop safety project, a high-stakes design that saved the corporation millions in potential lawsuits. The following year, the same name appeared in a legal file, termination due to professional negligence. Michael scrolled through the digital reports, piecing together a different picture. The so-called negligence was linked to a cost-cutting decision made by upper management, people long gone now. Elias had taken the fall. It wasn't clear if he'd even defended himself. For reasons Michael couldn't name, this discovery unsettled him more than it should have. He'd inherited a company built on those old decisions. Decisions that had raised men like him, while burying men like Elias. In the quiet hours after midnight, Michael left his office and walked the halls. The polished floors gleamed under the low light. When he passed the cafeteria, he saw him, Elias, sitting alone at the end of a long marble table, eating what looked like a cold sandwich and sipping from a paper cup. No phone, no noise, just patience. Michael stood unseen for a while, watching, before turning away with a heavy thought. Some debts aren't written in ledgers. The following evening, the air inside Lorne Tower carried the quiet metallic chill of tension. Word of the janitor incident had spread through the building like spilled ink. Some laughed about it, others didn't care. But one man couldn't let it go. Michael Lorne had watched it happen and done nothing. The image of Elias standing straight amid laughter haunted him like a reflection he couldn't wipe clean. So, when he stepped into the executive lounge that night long after the last employee had gone, he wasn't surprised to find Elias there again. Same table, Same lunch bag, same folded composure. Michael cleared his throat gently. Mr. Ward, isn't it? Elias looked up. His eyes, calm and unreadable, studied the man in the suit before him. Evening, sir. Floors are done. Just finishing my break. Michael hesitated, then gestured to the empty seat. Mind if I sit? The janitor nodded once. Your table. For a moment, silence settled between them. Michael took a breath. I read about you, he said quietly. The West Loop project. Elias didn't flinch, but the faintest pause hung in the air. Old story. It shouldn't have been. You saved this company once. Elias folded the brown bag neatly, his voice steady. That's generous of you to say, sir, but I'm just a cleaner now. Michael shook his head. You shouldn't have been treated like that last night. That was wrong. Elias's gaze lifted, mild but firm. It's forgotten. I'd like to make it right. Maybe don't. Elias's tone cut gently through the air, not sharp, but final. Don't offer me favors to soothe your guilt. I've learned to stand without them. Michael blinked. I wasn't. Elias leaned back, eyes softening. Sir, I clean this place because I choose to. Because any work is worth doing well. I don't need pity, just a fair floor to stand on. For a long moment, the two men sat in the hollow quiet of the cafeteria, the hum of the refrigerator, the only sound. When Michael left, the staff on the morning shift whispered that the CEO had eaten his dinner beside a janitor. By sunrise, the rumor had become a story, and by noon, everyone in the building had an opinion. By morning, the building buzzed. Rumors had twisted overnight, turning a simple shared meal into scandalous speculation. The CEO's pet janitor. He's trying to make a point. It's a PR stunt. Elias ignored the whispers as he polished the lobby railings. But when his supervisor called him into the small grey office near the service elevator, he knew what was coming. Ward, the supervisor said, sighing as if the weight of other people's discomfort had landed on his shoulders. I got calls. HR says you caused a distraction last night. The cafeteria's not for staff use after hours, especially not for socializing with executives. Elias looked at him evenly. Didn't realize eating a sandwich was a social event. Don't get smart. Just lay low for a while, all right? Elias nodded once. I always do. Meanwhile, upstairs, Michael Lorne faced his own reckoning. A special board session. Frosty smiles. Carefully worded concern. Michael, said one senior member, a man who'd been in the company since before Michael could legally drink. You can't afford to be sentimental. Staff fraternization confuses the hierarchy. It undermines authority. Michael leaned back, his voice quiet. Authority isn't undermined by decency. That's idealism. You're running a corporation, not a community center. He could feel the unspoken warning. You represent us. Don't humanize what's beneath you. When the meeting ended, Michael didn't return to his office. He went looking for Elias. He found him in the sub-level corridor, changing mop heads, sleeves rolled up. HR's giving you trouble, Michael said. Elias didn't look up. Not the first time. Michael hesitated. You shouldn't have to take this. I'll speak to them. Elias set the mop aside, finally turning to face him. His expression was calm, but his voice carried quiet heat. Don't rescue me to ease your conscience, Mr. Lorne. I've already survived one man's version of mercy. Michael frowned. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Elias asked. Pity dressed as progress? You can't clean the floor by standing above it. The silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was heavy, alive. Two men standing on different sides of the same cracked truth. Elias broke it first. You do your work. I'll do mine. Then he picked up his mop and walked away. The days that followed felt stretched thin, like the silence before a storm. The story of the CEO and the janitor had rippled far beyond the building. Interns whispered about it in elevators. Executives avoided the subject altogether. The cleaners, uncertain what it meant, treated Elias with an odd, uneasy respect, half pity, half awe. But Elias felt only exhaustion. He had spent his life trying not to be seen, and now his quiet had become a spectacle. That Friday night, as he finished buffing the marble lobby, Michael appeared again. No security detail, no entourage, just a man in shirt sleeves holding 2 paper cups of coffee. Peace offering. Michael said quietly, handing one over. Elias took it but didn't drink. "You shouldn't be here, neither should you," Michael replied. "They want me to issue a statement, something about upholding boundaries." I told them no. Elias gave a faint smile. "And now they'll come for you, too." Michael leaned against the wall. "Maybe they should." Elias placed the cup on the floor, his gaze distant. "You think guilt is courage? It isn't. You've got a company to protect. I've got $6.25 left to my name. Don't confuse our battles." Michael's eyes fell to the coins Elias had laid on the ledge beside his cleaning cart, carefully stacked. Gleaming faintly under the lobby lights, Elias continued, voice low but firm. "That's my independence right there. My bus fare, my dinner tomorrow, maybe a few minutes of light at home. Every cent earned honest. I don't need to be saved from that." Michael exhaled. "I didn't mean to insult you." "I know," Elias said. "But people like me get erased by good intentions more than bad ones." "You want to help? Fix the system that made you look away in the first place." Michael didn't answer. The hum of the lobby lights filled the space between them. When Elias picked up his mop again, he spoke softly, almost to himself. "A man is measured by what he cleans up, not what he owns." Michael watched him glide the mop across the marble, deliberate, patient, unshakably dignified, and realized he was watching the truest act of leadership he'd ever seen. The Monday after the fallout, an unexpected memo circulated quietly through the lower floors. Temporary reassignment, maintenance staff member Elias Ward, assisting with archive digitization project, floor 12. Elias read it twice before believing it. He'd been reassigned by order of the CEO himself. That afternoon, he arrived at the 12th floor, a silent, windowless archive room filled with dust and boxes stacked like tombstones of forgotten years. The air smelled of paper and old coffee. Michael was already there, sleeves rolled up, a laptop open among the folders. "I need someone who understands these old technical records," he said. "Most of this predates our digital system." Elias arched an eyebrow. "So you brought a janitor?" Michael met his gaze. "I brought the engineer who wrote half of these." For the first time, a flicker of surprise touched Elias's composed face. "You've been reading," he said quietly. They worked in near silence for hours, Elias methodical, sorting and scanning, Michael typing notes, occasionally asking questions. Slowly, the rhythm of work softened the tension between them. In one old binder, Elias found diagrams he'd drawn by hand years ago, safety mechanisms designed to prevent an equipment collapse that never happened. His initials were still there, precise, confident. He hesitated before turning the page. "You designed that?" Michael asked. Elias nodded. "They cut corners, used cheaper materials. When it failed, they needed someone to blame." Michael listened without interruption, his voice low. "My father was on that board. He signed the decision." The air stilled. Elias looked at him, not with anger, but something deeper, recognition. "So that's your burden, then?" Michael gave a faint, tired smile. "Seems we both inherited someone else's mess." For the first time, Elias's expression softened. "Then maybe it's time we clean it up." They worked past midnight. Between files and fading blueprints, a kind of unspoken respect grew, not built on pity or power, but on understanding. Two men bound by different forms of damage, both repairing something unseen. When they finally stepped out into the empty hallway, Michael offered Elias a bottle of sparkling water from the cooler. Elias took it, then quietly poured it into a paper cup from the janitor's cart. "Tap tastes better," he said. Michael smiled. For once, he agreed. By the third week of their quiet partnership, the 12th floor had changed. Stacks of dusty files now stood in ordered lines. Coffee stains had been scrubbed away. The air felt lighter, clearer. Michael and Elias fell into an unspoken rhythm, each understanding the other's silences. Sometimes, when the building settled into its after-hours hum, they would talk in fragments about work, the city, time. Nothing personal, yet everything human. One night, as Elias sorted through another folder of forgotten legal reports, he paused. He'd found something. A memo dated the year of his dismissal, signed by a senior vice president, now deceased. authorizing a cost reduction that directly contradicted the official report. Below it, in smaller text, was a signature, M. Lorne, Junior Board Observer. Elias's eyes lingered on it. Michael's name, he said nothing at first, just slid the file across the desk. Michael stared at it, the blood draining from his face. That's my father's name. Not mine. Elias looked at him carefully. You were still in the company then. Michael nodded slowly. An intern. They let me sit in meetings. I didn't understand half of what I saw. He rubbed his temples. I remember. My father said someone had to take the fall for the West Loop numbers. I didn't ask who. The truth hung heavy between them. Elias closed the folder. So that's how it happened. Michael's voice cracked slightly. My family built their success on your silence. Elias didn't answer. He simply began stacking papers, neat and deliberate. After a long moment, he said quietly, Then maybe this is your chance to say something louder. Michael looked at him. You'd let me do that? After what they did to you? Elias shrugged. A man can spend his life chasing justice, or he can live by it. I chose the second, Michael nodded slowly. Then I'll take the first. He stood straighter, resolve forming where guilt had been. We'll bring this to the board. Every file, every name. Elias smiled faintly, tired but proud. Clean floors, clean records. It was then they both understood. The janitor and the CEO weren't enemies in this story. They were two men trying to cleanse the same stain, just from opposite ends of the floor. The boardroom was silent. Every executive in Lorne Tower sat waiting, the Chicago skyline gleaming through the windows like judgment. Michael Lorne stood at the head of the table, one hand resting on a worn folder, the same one Elias had found in the archives. He spoke plainly without theatrics. He laid out the facts, the signatures, the choices made years ago that had ruined an innocent man. He ended with a single sentence. Mr. Elias Ward's name will be formally cleared, and the company will publicly acknowledge his contribution to the West Loop project. The board shifted uneasily. Someone muttered about precedent. Another whispered public relations nightmare. Michael didn't waver. Integrity isn't a headline, he said. It's housekeeping. At the far end of the room, near the service door, Elias stood in his grey uniform, silent witness to the truth finally aired. He hadn't wanted to attend, but Michael insisted. When the meeting adjourned, no one clapped. But every person in that room, every face once indifferent, turned toward the janitor, and in that quiet acknowledgement, Elias received more respect than any apology could give. A week later, the building was quiet again. The summit banners had been taken down, the marble floors gleamed, and life inside Lorne Tower had returned to its careful rhythm. Emails, deadlines, polite smiles. But one thing had changed. Elias Ward's name now appeared on a small bronze plaque outside the engineering wing. In recognition of integrity, craftsmanship, and courage in the pursuit of safety and truth, no ceremony, no press release. Just a simple piece of metal fixed to the wall he had once mopped. That night, as he always did, Elias sat in the cafeteria alone. The table was the same one where he'd once counted his coins and eaten his cold sandwich. The difference was subtle but undeniable. The hush around him was no longer dismissal. It was respect. Michael appeared quietly, carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. No suits, no entourage, just a man joining another at the table. He slid 1 cup across. Still prefer tap water? Elias smiled faintly. Always. For a moment they sat without speaking, the city lights reflecting softly across the polished marble. Elias reached into his pocket and placed a single coin, shiny, untouched, on the table. I've still got it, he said. Michael looked down. It was the same $6.25 coin stack, only 1 short. Elias pushed the remaining coin forward. Guess I can afford to give one away now. Michael didn't take it. He just nodded, understanding what it meant. 2 men sat together, one who'd lost everything but his dignity, another who'd found his true humility. And somewhere between them, the world felt a little cleaner. Some stories don't end with victory. They end with understanding. Elias Ward went back to work, still mopping floors that now bore his reflection and the company's conscience. Because sometimes the quietest man in the room teaches everyone how to stand tall. If this story moved you, share it. And subscribe for more stories that remind us of what truly matters.